For joining us here today. It's ideally we would have done this in person, and as it turns out, we probably could have, but logistically and so on, we opted to go this route. So today we're going to be hearing from three of the contractors that, well, plus Chef Alain as well, but three of the contractors did some research work for us under this project over the last couple years. And I'm going to highlight some of the larger projects that we've done under the Building Tomorrow Fund project over the last 3 years. So again, if anybody has any questions through any of the talks, either put your hand up under the reactions function, unmute yourself and ask that question, or you can use the chat function and ask the question there. Just ask you to, while the presentations are happening, you just keep yourself on mute. So I'll just share my screen and we can begin the presentation. So I'm assuming everybody can see that. And again, this Building Tomorrow Fund project is a 3-year-long project, and today we're going to try and summarize much of what we've accomplished, much of what's been done over the last 3 years, highlight how the project was done, and then we'll get into some of the details of some of the specific projects under the Building Tomorrow Fund. So I've mentioned this before in a lot of different venues over the last couple of years, either our winter meetings or annual meetings. The Building Tomorrow Fund was a large 3-year project, $930,000, and it's been administered by WBPANs. It's NSDA funds that came to us, and really was to explore the expansion of fresh and dry, clean, frozen. You might hear it called fresh frozen through the day, and try and expand that market. A lot of this was driven out of the poor prices that started 5 or 6 years ago, and it is a way to diversify our market and diversify where our berries are going. So the funds were approved by the provincial government in the 2018-2019 year, but the project really didn't get going until late March 2019. So that year one, very little work was done. We had about 2 weeks to get some work done. So it really didn't begin in earnest till the 2019-2020 year. And then in the last year of that project, we had it extended to include this current fiscal year, the 2021-2022 year, in order to achieve a lot of our project objectives. There just wasn't time to get everything done in the 2.25 year timeline. So we had it extended a year, and the minister approved it at that time. So today we're gonna go through several different presentations. First of all, I'm gonna give an overview of the whole project, and then Travis Esau and Adisaz Farouk are gonna give a presentation on the fruit quality harvest for fresh pack production. They've done a 2-year study on that, and with some really interesting insights related to temperature, moisture, canopy density, and so on, and how it affects the fruit quality. Chef Alain Boss, the Kilted Chef, is going to give an overview of our Wild Blueberry Week. It's something that we've done under the Building Tomorrow Fund for the last 2 years through his Facebook Live sessions. We had 2 weeks during harvest that highlighted ways to use wild blueberries. And we also highlighted the fresh pack operations where you can purchase some of this in season. Von Tyson Post has been working for 2 years on a fresh blueberry processing feasibility study, really looking at the capital expenditures, looking at the operational costs, and developing a spreadsheet that fresh pack operations or prospective fresh pack operations can utilize to help build their business plan. And then Perennia, Skew Foods, and AFC have worked together on wild blueberry product packaging and format investigation. So looking at everything from shelf life to packaging options to processing efficiencies and so on, and looking at things like pathogens on the fruit and ways to mitigate that. So that's a very large study, and we'll finish that. That'll be our last presentation for the day. So the steering committee was set up to kind of oversee this project, and it had 3 members from NSDA and 3 members from our association on it that helped guide the direction with feedback from members and so on. So here at list Paula Putnam, Terry McKay, and Ron Young, were part of the NSDA group, and myself, Neil Erb, and Don Mingo were part of the WB PAN's grower representatives. So the original questions were asked if, fresh production opportunity, if there is an opportunity here, why aren't more people doing it? That was one question. And there are some real limitations for wild blueberry production for fresh pack. On face value, fresh production looks like an untapped opportunity. There are somewhere between 15 to 20 operations in the province, but less than 5 are doing a significant volume. Price per pound is very strong for fresh production, but we're still seeing a lack of product in grocery stores throughout the harvest season. So, I'm still working on how to use Zoom. So what are some of the unique challenges for wild blueberry for fresh production? So it really does come down to the nature of the crop. Compared to many other soft fruits like high bush blueberry, like strawberry, how it grows and how it's harvested creates some limitations. So as most of you know, it's multiple varieties in a field that mature at different times. And because we're a single pass harvest, you're often getting green, overripe debris harvested at once. And that nature of the harvest, because it's a low growth plant and we're doing that single harvest, you're pulling berries through the leaves and weeds, and it can damage the fruit compared to hand harvest that you see in strawberry, high bush blueberry, or raspberry. And some unique things that some of the research that's happened at DAL has shown, fields have a limited peak ripeness. So, the ideal ripeness of a field is around 5 days, give or take. If you start picking before that, you get more green. If you start picking after that, you get more overripe fruit. And the other thing that we often run into in wild blueberries, the fields are often remote, particularly in Nova Scotia. We're seeing fields that are the top of Quabiquid Mountains. They're on very rough roads. So when you're pulling that fruit off that field, there's a lot of jarring and before it gets to the cleaning facility. So unless fields are directly next to a cleaning facility, there's damage to the fruit that happens in transport to get there. So the other thing that we're talking about is that harvest window. So we've got a fairly tight harvest window, and we don't have some of the advantages of other soft fruit where they have a block of one variety that ripens early, a mid-season variety, and a late-season variety that can extend the harvest season. All our varieties are mixed into one field, and really you've got a very tight harvest window. And it's really a short amount of time for a properly equipped facility to operate. So as we get into some of the other presentations, if you're building a specific facility, you're going to need other uses for that facility, because running it for 5 weeks, as some of the data may show, is not necessarily economically viable. The other thing is, some of the traditional cleaning methods are very labor intensive. So the traditional cleaning lines require a lot of people to operate. So that can be a limiting factor, particularly as we're running into more and more labor issues, particularly during harvest season. So, and then the other thing that we run into is the access to larger markets. So if we're going to get into selling to the big box stores, significant facility upgrades are required for not only food safety requirements that are required by those facilities, but to ensure shelf life of the product. If we're shipping to a large retailer, it's important that that shelf life is more than 4 or 5 days. We need to have longer shelf life. So the other thing that it sort of has been a barrier in the past is losses. So any grower that's picking for processing, selling to a major processor for IQF, you pick 100 pounds of your berries, you're getting paid for 100 pounds of that fruit that puts in the tote and goes to the processor. For fresh pack, depending on the time of the season, depending on the weather conditions, depending on the situation in the fields that you're picking, sometimes 20 to 30% of that harvested volume doesn't make it into the box that goes to the retailer. So it may or may not be marketable. So things like leaf litter, green fruit, soft fruit, clusters, and so on don't make it into that final product. And, in some years, some of this product can be sold to other markets. Sometimes processors will take some of it, but there's no guarantee of that. So there's a significant can be a significant loss of revenue. So this is a few years old, but again, some of the methods that are used to pick for fresh pack are slightly different. There's different requirements, although some people still will use a DBE or a modified other tractor mounted harvester. Walk behinds and hand raking are quite common. So some other things that, some considerations for picking for fresh pack. Not any field can be used as a fresh pack field. Patchy fields often introduce more debris and dirt. So ideally, you're looking at a fully mature field with good density. Weedy fields reduce volume harvested and the quality of fruit. So some of this research that we're going to see later kind of shows that. But if you've got a really grassy field or a really weedy field, it's an extra thing that damages the fruit at harvest. And the dense and tall canopies can stay wetter longer, cause more fruit damage during harvest, and can reduce fruit quality. So having too tall of a plant for fresh pack is not necessarily a good thing. And of course, heat and moisture hurts fruit quality and cleaning, and we'll see exactly how much in a few minutes. So part of the focus of the Building Tomorrow Fund was to explore the challenges, some of these challenges to increasing fresh and dry clean frozen production. So can we address some of these challenges? Is there ways to increase the window, improve shelf life, optimize fruit quality at harvest? So that's some of the things that we've looked through here. So again, what are the parameters for ideal harvesting conditions? Are there efficiencies in the cleaning process? Packaging and storage options to maintain shelf life? And of course, that financial analysis determine ways to make it more economically viable. So talking about processing efficiencies, back in the 2019-2020 growing season, I think Travis Esau did some work on the viability of a laser or color sorter in a commercial operation. And Travis has presented on this, and we will be including that full report in the full package that's distributed. We're not going to talk a lot about that today. But again, increases in infrastructure can help on the throughput on a cleaning facility and decrease labor. So we also looked at what are the actual market opportunities on a broad scale. So it's 30,000 foot view. So this study was done in 2019, 2020, and we contracted Narrative Research to do an online consumer research study on the viability of wild blueberry, fresh and frozen, in the North American market. And to do this, we are able to get some additional funding through a COA, and it essentially looked at 10,000 respondents from across Canada, the United States, east of the Mississippi River, and California. And we got some really good information on the knowledge of wild blueberries, what consumers are looking for. I'm not going to present on that here because it's about a 45-minute presentation itself. But again, that report is going to be included in the final package that people will be able to look at. And here's first slide of it. Very interesting data, and it was circulated to processors as well. So, looking at the IQF berry going into the consumer market. So one of the major parts of the Building Tomorrow Fund was the Innovation Challenge, and this developed out of the Solution Challenge. So if you remember, 4 or 5 years ago, there was a marketing study that was done, and the Solution Challenge, where the association put in some money, Department of Agriculture put in some money, and we selected companies that were looking to market-ready product. So the name of that company escapes me right now, but one of those companies was selected along with, on the wall there, Vivo. The NSDA supported that project as well to get those products to market. So that evolved into the Innovation Challenge, which was run under the Building Tomorrow Fund, and that ran for 2 years. So each year it was an open competition, call for proposals to get up to $126,000 to help bring a product to market. It wasn't for capital expenses, not for operational costs. It was designed to help companies answer questions about their product and get that product to market. And we had a selection committee that helped run this. So Ron Young, Matthias McClellan from NSDA, myself, Neil Erb, and Don McCauley, and then we had 2 external people help out, Lori Jennings and Greg Connell. Went through all the proposals, had feedback, narrowed down the selection, and then asked questions of those applicants, and then ultimately approved the final selection. So the first challenge winner in 2020 was Clever Fruits, and their product, and they presented in the 2020 AGM actually, and their product was a fermented wild blueberry powder, and they're aiming to get into the market to help with cholesterol management. There's people that are allergic to some conventional products, and there's some evidence to show that this can help with that. So they're in stages for, they're looking at clinical trials right now, and you may have seen some articles this past winter through Dow and in the Chronicle Herald on their product. And the 2021 winner was AKSO, and they're just in the process of completing their project right now. And really, they're a sea cucumber company, and they use powdered sea cucumber as a nutraceutical. And their proposal was looking at combining both dried and liquid wild blueberry into their product to a couple different things to make it taste better, but also add some health benefits to their product. And they had established markets in China, and that project is going quite well. We're expecting a final report in the next 2 weeks. Just one moment here. Oh yeah, Juice Nova was the product. Thank you, Nancy. They won the Solutions Challenge in 2018, 2019. So we also did some promotional and marketing activities over the last 3 years. So there was a marketing project that was done prior to the Building Tomorrow Fund, and under the Building Tomorrow Fund, we took that and expanded Canadian wild blueberries. And through that, we were able to sponsor a bunch of different events and get some exposure out there. So this is one Heartland Tour. It's a biking and activity opportunity in Nova Scotia where people are encouraged to go out and bike certain routes, and it's encouraging cardiovascular health, very well aligned with our health message. We sponsored that last year, and our association is going to continue that sponsorship through this next season, just through our association's promotion committee. Really good exposure, and it aligns really strongly healthy lifestyle, daily consumption of wild blueberries for a lot of really healthy benefits. So this branding initiative, we've also adjusted our Canadian wild blueberry logo over the past 2 years to highlight it a little bit on proudly grown in Nova Scotia. And we've developed stickers that growers could put on their boxes. And again, focus on the Canadian wild blueberries because our industry is very much linked across from Quebec right through to Nova Scotia. But this logo kind of highlights that, yes, it's Canadian wild blueberries, but they're grown in Nova Scotia. And also, we've done quite a bit with the Kilted Chef Alain over the last couple of years. One of the highlights has been the Wild Blueberry Week, and we've done this twice. The first week was in later 2 years ago. Was in later August. This past week was at the beginning of the season, and these are Facebook Live sessions. And he developed recipes where we were cooking with wild blueberries. Some common recipes. The first year we did blueberry grunt in a blueberry field. And we also did very good blueberry muffins, but also things, really unique recipes where people can use wild blueberries on a regular basis. And we're linking that brand and also linking the local fresh pack operations and the farmers markets where you can get the product in season. And Chef's going to talk about that a little bit later. We've also kind of adjusted our promotion activities a little bit. And instead of doing small ads in magazines, we're closely linked with Saltscapes, but we did 2-page spreads the last 2 years to highlight the industry, link to where you can buy local blueberries. So it links to, we have lists on our website where all the fresh pack operations are located and how to contact them. Also linking to recipes. And telling the story of wild blueberries in Nova Scotia. And as I mentioned, we not related to the Building Tomorrow Fund, but we revamped our webpage over the last 2 years. And on that, we have a link to fresh and frozen wild blueberries. So any fresh pack operation in Nova Scotia can list their operation there with contact links, Facebook or webpage. And then we will refer people that come to our office. We've referred to this list, any consumer or buyer that wants to come and purchase. So trying to raise the exposure of fresh pack operations throughout the province. So that's a quick overview of what that project looked like. Got time. If anybody has any questions before we move on, I think I'm a little bit or a lot ahead. I thought that was going to take a lot longer than that, but that's okay. It gives other people a little bit more time. So does anybody have any questions or comments before we move on?